So you're shopping the series around, you're looking for a production company, or you've
No, it's
already
been
found
sold
one?
to
It's
a
already-
production company, but we want to sell it to Netflix. We want to sell it to somebody else. I want to be involved in that too. A History Channel. Because I know what a fantastic story this is.
Sounds like it.
And it's just the kind of story that is perfect for this time. African American hero, which I think is timely. I'm a white guy, so I understand that my kind of guys pretty much run Hollywood for a long time. I think it's time that changed. But the story theme here is about contravening the rules, is about new heroes. So I think it's a great chance to show a real guy, I mean, his real life was so insanely cool that you really couldn't make it up. So it's a great idea, and I know it's going to sell.
So where did you go to start shopping it around? I know you said it's already been sold, but can you take a step back?
Since it's happening right now, I can't tell you exactly who we're going to.
Sure.
But we're looking at channels. We're looking at channels that have names, that have channel in the name.
Sure.
And also, yes, and the big companies. I mean, look, there's $14 billion worth of money now in the two fields, internet platform and cable. There's $14 billion worth of money chasing stories right now. And it's funny because Susie tells me, she says, don't say it's easy. It's not easy to sell anything. It's so hard and you've got to be experienced, and that's all true. Hollywood's not like, there's not streets paved with gold, right? It's extremely difficult still to sell anything in this business, and it'd be silly to say it's not. But this is the most exciting time, I think, in history for television, at least in the U.S. Now I'm going over to South Africa in a couple of weeks to lecture over there at the Durban Film Mart. Also getting remarried, or not married, having another ceremony.
Nice.
And the South African television market, I think is growing. I've just been working with a guy in Brazil, a big soap opera star down there, who wants to do a serial for Netflix. I think worldwide television is just on fire. But the interesting thing is, this miniseries, Jack Johnson, the miniseries form in television is probably the closest to a movie form television offers. What do I mean by that? A miniseries like what you'll see in The Assassination of Gianni Versace and Trust, these are long movies. Television miniseries are like long movies rather than TV serials. Now, I just have worked on, and been paid for, a crime drama serial for television, which is not a miniseries. We can talk about that too, but the miniseries form is like a long movie. Why is that? Because you have wounded characters who at the end of the miniseries have healed, or they bled out, one or the other. But they have an arc, okay? And that miniseries arc is just like a long movie. So with Jack Johnson, he's a superhero, but he still had a journey. So you get a progression in the story. And for instance, in Assassination of Gianni Versace, you've got a wounded guy. Andrew Cunanan was a wounded guy. His dad wounded him. And his wound never healed, but he tried to heal it. And so you saw this, it was like a 7-episode long movie. So it had a BMOC, which is, we can talk about that too, in it. So when I'm writing miniseries, if you're a movie writer who wants to go into television, you should think about, as a transition, writing a miniseries, because it'll give you the opportunity to use all your movie chops, but in a television form, that lets you transition into television, because you need to have a character or a set of characters who are bleeding at the beginning, who get mentors and wound rippers all through it, and then they learn the theme of the show towards the end, and then they either heal or don't. And that's what a miniseries gives you that a serial television show doesn't give you. In serial television, obviously, the wounded person just keeps bleeding all through it for 100 episodes. But miniseries offer you a lot of the forms of a movie in a television setting.
Well, I know Sharp Objects, I think, debuted on Sunday. I didn't watch it. But
I don't either. I've never even heard of it.
Oh, okay. So it's a Gillian Flynn, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly.
Yeah.
The writer of Gone Girl. And
Right.
I guess she wrote this story because I started just listening to some interviews before she wrote Gone Girl and these other stories, and it's about a wounded character, and it's a female, and she said she's very wounded and has issues, but she's likable. And she thought that was interesting, that for this character it had to be defended that she was likable, because she kind of said, well, Walter White, does he have to be likable? Some of these other, Tony Soprano, does he have to be likable?
I would argue they are likable.
Okay.
But sympathetic is actually more important than likability. If you look at Tony Soprano, he's a good example. It's old now, but I think it's the most brilliant television ever made. I think if you haven't seen Sopranos, you should watch it, okay? Because it's still the most brilliant, just like Shakespeare. Tony Soprano is a murderer. He's a horrible human being, and yet we love him. Why? We love him because he's got this deep wound in him, and it comes from his mother. And the entire first season of The Sopranos is about this horrible mother and how awful she is to Tony. And even though when he tries to kill her on the gurney, when they're rolling her out of the nursing home, and she's going, ha, 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 ha. He's literally trying to get her with a pillow. Our sympathies are with Tony. Why? Well, here's a big secret of the AntiHero, which I'll tell you, which I talked about earlier. Anti-heroes are great guys who've turned bad for sympathetic reasons, right? For sympathetic reasons. Michael Corleone becomes a horrible man. Why? He's saving his dad. He's saving his family, right? Tony Soprano is a horrible guy, but we like him. Why? Because he wants to save his family. The first season of Tony Sopranos, we're seeing him. The ducks are leaving his pond. His kids are leaving the nest, right? He's trying to get his mom saved into a home. She's like, leave me alone. You're a horrible human being. So the great secret of an anti-hero is to make the villains and the people around them worse and less likable than the hero themselves. So Tony Soprano's mom is the most miserable, horrible human being ever conceived on television. And Jay says that. This is based on his own mom. But so we love Tony because his mom is just so awful. And we think, God, poor guy. No wonder he turned into a murdering psychopath. His mom is awful. So that's the critical thing about making someone sympathetic and also likable. Yes, it's important, but to make them sympathetic, you simply make the other people around them worse. Michael Corleone had to save his dad. Nobody else would do it. His brother couldn't do it. He had these terrible villains around him that were shooting his entire family. He had to save his family. And in doing so, he eventually lost his family, right? Just like Tony Soprano. Tony Soprano ends up killing his nephew, ends up killing the people all around him, probably ends up having somebody shot in that final restaurant scene around him. But we have great sympathy for him because we see his wounds. The wounds are everything. Wounds are why we love a character. And when you first start out writing a story, you should show me your hero or your character's wounds the second they get on screen. The second they're on screen, show me the wound. That's how you get somebody to be likable. You get the note, your character's not likable, which you get all the time from a producer. That's how to make them likable. Show them bleeding.